Okay, on this particular one, what we're going to do here is to figure out the vertical asymptotes. You got the x equal, they already have that there for us. So we need to figure out what are the restricted values. So what you have to do here is factor the bottom. So that will factor into x plus 4, x minus 4, all over 5x. And so the restricted values here are going to be positive and negative 4 because that either one of those would cause that to equal 0. So you need to put both of those in there. Doesn't matter which one goes first, just put them both inside there. Second part is our horizontal asymptote. So now the rule here that's going to happen is that the power in the numerator is smaller than the power in the denominator, so it automatically goes to 0. So with that information, you probably have a pretty good idea uh, what the graph looks like. But if you look down below, all our graphs they all have the same vertical and horizontal asymptotes. So that's where finding these additional points are going to kind of help us. And so what you want to do is you want to plot a point on the left of the vertical asymptotes and then to the right and then a couple in the middle. And that's what we're doing here. Okay. So you just kind of have to do your algebra. Um, so if we plug in -5, let's see, you would get -25 over, let's see, that would be positive 25 minus 16. That would be 9. And so that would be about negative like 2.7 or something like that. So at -5, we should be down on the negative side. So right away, I already know the answer is C, okay, because that point's about, oh, let's see, it's probably about right here. So it's probably that point right there. But let's go ahead and look at the other ones just to make sure. So if I plug in -1, let's see, I'd get a -5 over, let's see, that would be 1 minus 16, which is -15. That would reduce to 1/3. So you want to make sure and reduce that to 1/3 when you put your answer in. And that is consistent with what I have over here. You can see there's that point right there, I guess. Then if I plug in a 1/2, that's a little tricky, okay? So if I plug in 1/2, I'm going to do this where I have a little bit more room over here, okay? So if I do f of 1/2, what will happen is I'll get 5 over 2 over, and then when I square the 1/2, that'll become 1/4, right? If I square it, 1/2 squared becomes 1/4, and then minus 16. And then I need to clean this up a little bit, and that's where it gets a little bit more challenging. So let's see. So I'm going to have 5 over 2. I got to get a common denominator over here. So I'm going to have 1/4 minus 60. Oops. Let's see. Yeah. 64 over 4. That's the same thing as 16 right there. So now I have that common denominator. And so let's see. That'll become 5 over 2 over negative 63 over 4. And then we have to do keep, change, flip. So we'll keep the 5 over 2, change its multiplication, flip that over to 4 over negative 64. Um, I'm sorry, 63. 63. So what you can see here is the 4 and the 2 will reduce. And so you're going to end up with 10 over negative 63. Okay, and that was at 1/2. And once again, that's consistent with what I have right here. That would be that point right there. That one's a little tricky plugging in the 1/2, so just you gotta be careful with your algebra. So we had to get a common denominator, uh, did the subtraction, then did keep, change, flip, and then that's how I ended up there. Make sure you reduce. You don't want to get points taken off for not reducing. Then let's see, if you plug in a 1, that one should come out pretty easy. So you'll get 5 over, let's see, 1 squared is 1, minus 16 is negative 15. Now you have positive over a negative, so that'll be negative 1/3. When you reduce that, once again, that's consistent with what we're looking for. And then the last one, if you plug in positive 5, you're going to get 25 over 25 minus 16 over 9. And then so it's positive. Once again, that's consistent um, with what we were expecting right there. Okay, let's look at the next example that was sent. Okay, this is going to be, this is the newer version of our book. And so these questions are going to be more of what you're going to see on the exam, just to kind of give you a heads up. So they ask for the y-intercept. So if you want to find the y-intercept, you let x equal 0. Okay. So if you want to hit the y-axis, you let x equal 0. So the answer to this one should actually be 0 for this first part. So if you were to do f of 0, you get 3 times 0 over 0 minus 5. So you get 0 over negative 5, which is 0. Okay, the next one is what are the x-intercepts? Okay, so this time you set the whole thing equal to 0 and solve. So 0 um, equals, well, actually, what's even easier is just set the numerator equal to 0. So set the numerator equal to 0, divide by 3, and that's going to equal 0 right there. So that one should be 0 also. If you plug in 3, that won't, that's not an x-intercept, because the result f of x would come back as 9 over negative 2. If you plug in 3, you get 9 over negative 2, and to be a x-intercept, y has to equal 0. Okay, so now our asymptotes. Okay, so the vertical asymptote, once again, is the restricted value. So if you look back up here, the restricted value in the denominator spot is going to be positive 5. So you have to put it this way. It says type an equation, so it's going to have to be x equals 5. So be careful about that, okay? Horizontal asymptote, you'll notice the powers are the same. So you can take the ratio of these 3 over 1. So 3 divided by 1 is 3. So, and then once again, it's asking for an equation. So it's going to be y equals 3. Okay. So then this next part, you're just finding some points. Now that I have the asymptotes, so I'm going to go ahead and look at the graph real quick and see if I can figure out which graph it is. And so I can tell that the answer is going to be C from just knowing my asymptotes, okay? But sometimes they're going to give you a graph where the asymptotes are the same, and so you're going to have to do a little bit more investigation, and that's where we start plugging in these points. So now they're saying, okay, plug in -6 and what happens here. And I think you got it from here. So you're just going to plug those in for x and then simplify it and put it in these boxes, and then -4 and so on. Okay.